Okay, sexual offences are the acts of illegal sexual intercourse with any other person or animal or any illegal act to obtain sexual gratification, right? Okay, so actually these sexual offences are classified onto actually different basis. So the first one is whether it is a natural or unnatural sexual offense. So it is because, so what is the actual nature suggests you to do have sex? Having vaginal intercourse, right? So penis and entering into the vagina, that is the natural course of sexual intercourse that will happen in the humans. Okay, that is according to the nature, right? So what are those offenses when actually they will come under the natural sexual offenses? So the first one is rape. So actually it is a violent form of natural sexual offense. Okay, it is a violent form of natural sexual offense. Actually, there are three natural sexual offenses: rape, incest, and adultery. But out of these three, only rape will actually come under the forceful, okay, or violent form of sexual offense. And the second one is the incest. Incest is actually nothing but having sexual intercourse with a related person. Okay, maybe okay, father with daughter, brother with sister, like that. Okay, that is incest. And adultery, so actually there is no violence in this adultery, but there is sexual intercourse. And now actually recently the government has actually amended this act, adultery, and it's no more an offense anymore. Okay, it's not an offense anymore. It's adultery, but still, okay, it is kept in the classification of the sexual offenses, right? And next is the unnatural sexual offenses, that is against the order of the nature. As I told you, so normal, okay, what is the order of the nature? To have a vaginal intercourse, right? So in case of an unnatural sexual offense, there will be intercourse against the order of the nature. So that may be include sodomy, otherwise known as burglary or Greek love, where the person will have an anal intercourse. Okay, it's not a vaginal intercourse, it's an anal intercourse, right? So the second one is tribadism, so otherwise known as female homosexuality, and third one is the bestiality. So it is nothing but the having sexual intercourse with a lower animal. So it is also against the nature of the order of the nature, right? And finally the buccal coitus. So as the name suggests, buccal coitus is sexual intercourse in the mouth. Okay, so that is keeping the penis in the mouth, or okay, the vice versa is also comes under the unnatural sexual offense, that is buccal coitus. So actually, in these two natural and unnatural sexual offenses, there is some form of intercourse. Okay, whether it is vaginal intercourse or anal or with an animal. Okay, so there is some form of intercourse, right? So the third form of sexual offenses, okay, are those caused where there is no sexual intercourse at all, but the gratification is obtained without sexual intercourse, right? They are called as the paraphilias or sexual perversions. Okay, in these sexual perversions, there is no sexual intercourse at all. So a person will actually get the sexual gratification without sexual intercourse. So these examples include sadism, masochism. So there are different types of sexual paraphilias where a person will actually get the sexual gratification, that is without the sexual intercourse. So for example, okay, just okay, to talk about sadism, where a person will have a sexual gratification by just beating someone. Okay, there is no sexual intercourse. Just by beating someone, you will get the sexual gratification. So masochism, the reverse. So by just getting pain, he will actually get the sexual gratification. So necrophilia, fetichism. So there are different types of sexual perversions. We will deal them in the next classes. So you just know that there are different sexual perversions where there is no sexual intercourse, but the person will actually get the sexual gratification by some other act apart from the sexual intercourse. Right? So apart from these three sexual offenses, so there is one more offense called as sex-linked offenses. So actually there is no sexual gratification in these sex-linked offenses, but there is gender bias in these sexual offenses that includes indecent assault, sexual harassment, voyeurism, stalking, trafficking. So these are all different forms of sexual harassments actually okay, where a female, most commonly female as a, who has a, okay, who is treated as a different, who has the privileges of, okay, having the modesty. Okay, so when her modesty is being okay, disturbed, so then these sexual offenses, okay, these sex linked offenses will actually come into act. Okay, okay, right. Today we are going to actually deal with only one thing, that is the rape. Okay, that is a natural sexual offense which is violent. So it is a violent form of natural sexual offense. Of course, in few cases there may not be any violence, but still it is a violent form of natural sexual offense. So what is actually a rape? So we'll, okay, it is actually defined under, okay, it is not a medical definition. Okay, rape is not a medical definition, it is a legal definition. Okay, so it is actually defined under 375 IPC. Okay, so there are different clauses under 375 IPC which amounts to rape. So we'll deal, okay, I'll talk about them. Okay, now, so first we'll see what is, okay, introduction to the rape. So a charge of rape is easy to make, hard to prove, and still harder to disprove. Okay, so means, what does it mean? So if a girl can come and say that, okay, I was raped, so it is very easy, right? So somebody can say that I was raped, but actually it is very hard to prove because there are so many issues involved in the definition of rape. Okay, so, and it will be in a, it will be done in a most commonly in a confined place where there are no evidences, no witnesses, right? So that's why it is very hard to prove and still harder to disprove, because there are few sections of Indian Penal Code and Indian Evidence Act that say that if a woman complains that she is raped, okay, then it is the person who actually has to prove that she he has given the consent. Okay, so there are two issues in this, so it's very hard to prove and still harder to disprove also, right? So because, as I told you, there are actually, the definition of rape is actually amended in 2013 after that Delhi Nirbhaya case. So it actually became very harder to disprove also. Okay, next, prosecution has actually to prove all the evidences. So like any other, okay, like a murder, so the prosecution has to prove that the accused has actually done that crime, right? Similarly, here also, in the case of rape also, the prosecution has to prove all the evidences in regarding the rape, right? And the proof of consent, that is what actually the main part in the definition of rape. Okay, so that actually has to be proved by the accused. So if the woman says that I didn't have give the consent, then it is the burden of the accused to prove that she gave me the consent. Okay, so by any evidences, okay, so he may actually produce something which suggests, okay, that she has given the consent for that particular sexual intercourse. Right? So as I told you, there are two sections under which this rape is dealt in the Indian Penal Code. Okay, rape is dealt in under the Indian Penal Code, that is 375 and 376. So these are the two very important sections that actually you should know. And there are different other sections under Criminal Procedure Code and Indian Evidence Act regarding rape. That also there are few sections which you actually have to remember. So, but these 375 and 376 are very important to remember, right? And as I told you, the definition of rape. Okay, previously there was a simple definition, but after this Nirbhaya case, that is the brutal rape and murder case in Delhi, okay, in 2013, actually that has led to outcry in the country, right? So that led, okay, that actually, after that there is a committee was formed by a retired judge. Okay, he along with some other judges, actually they gave guidelines. Okay, and within 1 month actually they framed some guidelines, and after that, okay, this came in into force in February 2013 somewhere. Okay, so that is the Nirbhaya Act. So that is simply, okay. So the definition of rape is actually, now we actually can be synonymously called as Nirbhaya Act, right? Okay. So according to section 375 IPC, after Nirbhaya, okay, after 2013 amendment, so there are 4 clauses under which, a person actually can commit a rape. So in India, according to Indian Penal Code, only man can commit rape on a woman. Okay. So there are few countries where actually female also can commit the rape on a man, but in India, only a man can commit a rape. So the definition starts like this: a man is said to have committed rape. Okay. So if there are 4 conditions in which this, okay, a man is said to have committed rape. 1, penetrates his penis. So that is normal, right? So that is the only thing that was there previously. Okay, the previous to this amendment, only penetration of the penis was the only thing that is considered as rape, right? But there are 3 other things that were added in the nearby act that also amount to rape. Okay, so it is penetrating of the penis. How much? To any extent, that is just touching of the penis to the vulva. Okay, so our labia majora can also commit, actually can account to rape. Okay, so there need not be any complete penetration of the penis into the vagina to say that it is rape, because the definition itself says that penetration of the penis to any extent into the vagina, not only vagina, right? So you see there are 2 or 3 other things that were added: mouth, urethra, or anus of a woman. So it is not only the vagina that entering of the penis into the vagina that amounts to rape, but also if somebody enters his penis, a man enters his penis into either mouth, urethra, or even the anus of a woman. Okay, so that also actually amounts to rape according to section 375 IPC after the Nirbhaya Act. Okay, so there are 3 other things that actually, apart from the penis entering into the whether urethra, vagina, penis, okay, anus or of a woman, that amounts to rape. But also if somebody inserts any object, okay, so to any extent, that is, it can be either, okay, penis, it can be any object, means if somebody inserts a pen into either vagina, mouth, anus, okay, not mouth actually, so vagina or urethra or anus, or if somebody inserts his finger into the vagina, urethra, okay, anus, so all these actually amount to rape after this amendment. Okay, so not only insertion of the penis, but also insertion of any object. Okay, so any object, so you just imagine any object. Okay, so a finger, hand, whatever it is. So if somebody touches a female with the hand, that also actually, any part of these, okay, these private parts, that also actually amount to rape. Okay, after this amendment, right? And third one, so actually there is no insertion in this. Okay, third one, you see that manipulates any part of the body so as to cause penetration. So if somebody, okay, tries to, okay, unclothe a woman, just, okay, or makes her to do so by, okay, by some other, okay, I'll talk about those clauses. So if somebody, a woman, makes her to remove her clothes or makes her to do, okay, become naked, right? Which, why he's doing that? So as to have a sexual intercourse, right? So as to cause penetration into the vagina, urethra, or anus of the woman, or makes her to do so, or with any other person. So you see this in all these 3 clauses. It is not only that the person does it, or, okay, if there is, okay, if you ask someone to remove that, okay, so there is another person in the room, or, okay, uh, makes her to do so, or in all these 3 cases, the person actually has committed rape. Okay, and the 4th one, so this is very, okay, actually we are talking about the intercourse in the mouth, right? So here actually it is the same thing. So applies his mouth to the vagina, anus, urethra of a woman, or makes her to do so with him, or to any other person, will come under the rape only, right? So whether he inserts his penis into vagina, urethra, mouth, or anus, or any object into the mouth, urethra, okay, any object into the, except mouth, okay, any object into the vagina, urethra, or the anus, or if he does an act for actually insertion of the penis into the mouth, okay, into the mouth, anus, vagina, and fourthly, if he applies his mouth to vagina, urethra, anus, or okay, for except mouth, because so mouth, if he applies his mouth to mouth, it is actually not okay sexual intercourse. It is actually kiss, right? So that's why. So in case of fourth class, so only if he applies his mouth to the urethra, vagina, or the anus, then it amounts to rape. So when it amounts to rape, so for example, if he does all these things with his own wife, does it amount to rape? Or if he does with a girl who actually has given permission, does it amount to rape? No, right? So all these clauses should be taken into consideration under these following circumstances, right? So what are they? The first one is against her will. So if he does all those acts, which were actually I was talking about those 4 acts, against her will. So what is will? That is nothing but okay, you can call it as an interest. Okay, so she is not interested. Okay, so then it amounts to rape. So if somebody applies his mouth, okay, to vagina, urethra, or anus against her will, it amounts to rape. So, or if he had sexual intercourse with penis into the vagina, urethra, or anus against her will, it amounts to rape, right? So, in those circumstances where these 7 clauses will be okay, can be applied, then only it amounts to rape. Okay. So in other circumstances where there is a consent or there is a will for the sexual intercourse, consent and will for the sexual intercourse, it doesn't amount to rape. So second one is against or without her consent. So what is the difference between will and consent? Will is actually, as I told you, so she is not interested, right? And you are doing it forceful. Got it? And second one is without consent. And here also actually she may be having will. So she is his girlfriend only, right? So she also having interest towards sex. But she didn't give consent. She didn't give permission for the sexual intercourse at that particular time. Okay, so why I am telling you that at that particular time? Okay, maybe they are having sexual intercourse previously. Okay, they are having regular sexual intercourse. But at that particular time, she is not interested. She didn't give consent. Then, okay, it comes under without her consent. Okay, now we understand the difference between a will and consent. Okay, so she may be interested in case of without her consent. She may be interested to have sexual intercourse, but she didn't give consent. She didn't give permission to have sexual intercourse at that particular time. Okay, so that is the difference, right? So these are the two. Okay, they are outright means the no will, no. Okay, it's a rape. No consent, it's a rape. So these are two. Okay, outright things. No need to talk about all these two things more detail. But there are few other things where there is consent. That is, the girl has given permission for sexual intercourse, but still it amounts to rape. So what are those circumstances? We'll see. So with her consent, when the consent is obtained by putting her or any other person in whom she is interested in fear of death or hurt. What does it mean? So the person actually got permission to have sexual intercourse by forcing. Okay, so by saying that okay, if you don't give permission, I'll kill your friend, I'll kill your father, I'll kill your mother. Okay, in fear of death of somebody whom she is interested in, or okay, I'll kill you. Okay, this girl itself, her girl herself. Okay, so in these circumstances, even though the girl have permitted to have sexual intercourse, that consent is not valid because, okay, when actually we are talking about consent in the medical law and ethics, what we are talking, consent is should be voluntary and it should not be enforced, right? So here, what they are doing? He is getting the consent by force, isn't it? Because he's putting someone whom she is interested or herself in danger, and out of fear, she gave the consent or permission. So that consent is not valid. So that amounts to rape, right? And the fourth one, with her consent, when the man knows that he is not her husband, just this is tricky, just to try to read it and understand. When the man knows, so the first thing is the man knows that he is not her husband. So the man knows that okay, he is not the husband of that particular woman, and she has given consent because she believes that he is another man to whom she is lawfully married. So just okay, I'll just give you an example. So I went to somebody of my friend's place. So there, there is no electricity and it was dark. Okay, so what happened? His wife opened the door and she thought, she thought that I am actually her husband. Okay, because she cannot see. Okay, or you think she's blind. Okay, she cannot see, right? And she actually gave consent for sexual intercourse, even though she asked me to actually have sexual intercourse. Okay, I know that I'm not her husband, right? So I should not have sexual intercourse because it is actually she is thinking that I'm her husband, right? So in those circumstances where you are you know that you're not her husband, but still you are having sexual intercourse. When the woman thinks that you are her husband, so that is what decide. So there is actually no fear in that, but you are cheating her. You are cheating her, and that actually amounts to rape. Even though she gave consent, she only asked to have sexual intercourse, thinking that I am her husband. So that's why you should always uh, even though she gave the consent, that consent is not valid because it is actually obtained by cheating, right? And the fifth one, with her consent, when at the time of giving such consent, so this is also very easy to understand. When at the time of giving such consent, by reason of unsoundness of mind, that is, she actually cannot understand what the act is for. So because she is mentally ill, because of her mental illness, she actually cannot understand the actual sexual intercourse. So in that circumstances where a person cannot understand, the woman cannot understand the act of sexual intercourse, right? Then the consent is not valid, and the consent you obtained is not valid, and it becomes a rape, right? So not only when the person is mentally ill, but also when the person is intoxicated. So for example, a woman is fully under the influence of alcohol and she gave consent, but that consent is not valid because under intoxication a person actually loses his control on his thinking, and that consent is actually not valid, right? So whether when the person is mentally ill or otherwise, means when the person is intoxicated by herself, or the man himself actually drugged her by actually keeping a drug in the normal cool drink. What happened? She actually was intoxicated and made her to give the sexual intercourse. Made her to give the consent for the sexual intercourse, which is not valid because the person actually cannot understand the for which she is giving the consent. So whether she is mentally ill or intoxicated, that consent is not valid and it amounts to rape. And the sixth one, with or without consent. So this is simple. So whether she gave consent or not, if the female's age is less than 18 years. So what does it mean? In India, a girl below the age of 18 years cannot give a valid consent for sexual intercourse, and it amounts to rape whether she gave consent or not. Even though she is interested to have sexual intercourse, because she has not attained the age of 18 years, it amounts to rape. If somebody complains that my daughter has sexual intercourse with somebody, some ex, and my daughter is below the age of 18 years, and it is proved that he had sexual intercourse with that girl, that is enough to say that it is rape. No need of consent, because even though she gave the permission, it is not valid. So this is the most important thing. It is otherwise called as statutory rape. So law itself says that a female cannot have sexual intercourse. For example, what do we say? Liquor consumption. So there is a limited age of which a person actually procure liquor. That is 21 years, right? So before that, actually, it is a crime. Similarly, a girl cannot have sexual intercourse before the age of 18 years, and if a man has sexual intercourse with a girl who is less than 18 years, that amounts to rape. Previously it was 16 years. Now actually they have increased after this. Criminal Amendment Act 2013 and thereby Act, and it is 18 years now. So only after 18 years a girl can have sexual intercourse, which is valid. That doesn't amount to rape. Actually, there is one exception to this. Only in case of a married woman, If her age is more than 15 years, she actually can have sexual intercourse. Of course, actually the law says that only after 18 years a female is eligible to marry. But in this Indian Penal Code, there is an exception to that. A female, if she is married and is above the age of 15 years, she actually can give the sexual consent for the sexual intercourse. Okay. And finally, the seventh clause, that is when she is unable to communicate. Okay, what does it mean? So when she is sleeping, okay, or when her mouth is closed, or when she is deaf and dumb, so she cannot communicate the consent, right? And if after that intercourse, if she says that I didn't give consent, then it amounts to rape. Okay, so only all these things will come into consideration only if they go to, okay, if they go to court or police, right? So otherwise, okay, nobody knows that what happened, right? So when actually a woman says that, when a woman says that she actually was raped, so it is the burden of the burden of the person, to, okay, the man, to prove that she gave consent, because okay, you know why when it becomes to rape, right? So there is involvement of consent and will in case of definition of rape. And the second one is the prosecution, that is the victim's lawyer has to prove beyond doubt that the person has actually committed rape. Okay, so means he need not have complete sexual intercourse just by touching the penis to the vagina, or by touching the finger to the vagina, or by keeping any object in the vagina itself actually is amounts to rape. So that has to be proved by the prosecution. Okay. So just to summarize what I told you till now. So a man, when he penetrates his penis to any extent into the vagina, urethra, anus, or mouth, or inserts any object to any extent into the vagina, urethra, or anus, or manipulates any part of the body so as to cause penetration into the vagina, urethra, or the anus and mouth, applies to his mouth, vagina, urethra, or the anus, or makes her to do so with him or any other person against her will, without her consent, with her consent, if the consent is obtained with fear of death or hurt, misconception of the facts, when she is under the age of 18 years, or if she is an insane person or mentally ill person or intoxicated or hypnotized, when she is unable to give consent, okay, or when she is unable to communicate consent, it amounts to rape. Okay, so that's what I told you till now, right? So a man, when he does any of these acts against her will, without her consent, and the consent is obtained by fear or intoxication or fraud, or when she is unable to communicate consent, that amounts to rape. Okay, now you understand what amounts to rape, right? So there are few exceptions, as I told you. So I told you any object into the vagina. So as a doctor, you may actually insert some okay, probe into the vagina to actually check for any infection in the vagina. Right? Does it amount to rape? No, right? Because we are actually doing the act with the consent, and also we are actually doing for her betterment, right? So for her health. So it doesn't amount to rape. Okay, when you do some medical procedure and insert some object into the vagina, it doesn't amount to rape. And also sexual intercourse with his own wife, as I told you previously itself. So a woman actually cannot give sexual intercourse before marriage unless she attains 18. But if she is married, she can give consent after 15 years of age. Okay, and okay, and one more thing you have to remember is, if she is less than 15 years, even though they are married, okay, they are married, even though the marriage is not legally valid, still it amounts to rape. Okay, only after 15 years of age, even though the marriage is not legally valid, the consent is valid. Okay, that doesn't amount to rape. Okay, but if the girl's age is less than 15 years, even though she is his wife, okay, that also amounts to rape. Okay, so for a married woman, 15 years is the limit. For an unmarried woman, 18 years is the limit for defining it as a rape, right? And consent for rape, as I told you, actually you know this. What is actually consent? It is actually permission, a voluntary agreement, or a permission for a specified act. It can be either medical examination or a procedure, surgical procedure, whatever it is, right? Here in this case, for sexual intercourse, for that act, okay. permission for sexual intercourse. That is what is consent in rape. Okay, right? So the consent should be before the act. That is, before the sexual intercourse itself, the person has to take the permission. Okay, if somebody says, okay, had sexual intercourse and okay, he takes consent after that, it's not valid. And also, it should be free and voluntary. That is, she has to feel okay that she want to have sexual intercourse. And women of 18 years, as I told you, girl below 18 years cannot give a consent for sexual intercourse. And women should be of sound mind. That is, she should not be mentally ill, or nor she should not be intoxicated by some drugs or alcohol. Right? And will and consent are different. Okay, as I told you in the first slide itself, will is she is not having not interested at all. Right? But consent, she is not permitted. Right? So even though she is interested, she may not give permission. Okay, that is the difference between will and consent. Right? And submission is not necessarily consent. That is, the fact that she didn't resist. The fact that she didn't resist is not a proof that she has given a consent. Okay, so you have to prove apart from that, you have to prove that she has actually given a consent for sexual intercourse. Okay, so what constitutes rape? Just touching the penis to the vagina itself is rape. No need to have sexual intercourse, complete act of sexual intercourse, and slight penetration is into the vulva itself is enough without emission of the semen into the. Okay, even there is no rupture of the hymen. So you know what is the importance of hymen. Okay, in the last class itself. Okay, in the class of virginity, you know that, right? So even without the rupture of the hymen, it amounts to rape, because in the definition itself, to any extent, okay, insertion of penis to any extent. Right? Compared to even the actually person is enabled to produce erection. That is why, okay, this is very important, because a person can claim that I am actually impotent. Okay, I am impotent. Still, a woman can claim that okay, she raped. Because okay, even though he is impotent, still he has penis, right? Even though he has no erection, still he has penis, and if he touches that penis to the vagina, it amounts to rape, right? So that is why there is actually no need to be the person to be potent to say that the person has committed rape. Okay, so actually there is no importance of potency certificate in actually rape, but still we'll always examine the accused person for potency, right? And no age limit for accused. That is a child of 2 years can commit rape according to IPC. Okay, so I'm not saying that they'll do it. So according to IPC, there is no age limit for a man to commit rape. Okay, a boy also can commit rape, and then old person of 100 years also can commit rape. Okay, right? And as I told you, statutory rape, that is a girl who is below the age of 18 years, even though she gave consent. If she didn't give consent, it is actually rape. Even though she gave consent, if she is below the age of 18 years, it amounts to rape. Okay, so that is statutory rape. It's very important. Note it down. Statutory rape and marital rape. Actually, there are two things. Okay, in few textbooks, marital rape was defined differently, but in R&R, which we are actually following, marital rape is a woman who is living separately with her husband. Okay, and by some reason, right? Because they might have applied for divorce in the court, and they are living separate, right? And if that man commits sexual intercourse or with that particular woman who is his wife only, still they are living separately without her consent. Actually, that amounts to marital rape. Okay, so that amounts to marital rape. Actually, there is punishment for this. More than 2 to 5 years of imprisonment will be there. So that we talk about in the punishment for rape. Okay, so when we talk about punishment for rape, it is dealt under section 376 IPC. So you know what is 375 IPC, isn't it? So this is 376 IPC. So what is the difference? 375 deals with the definition of rape. 376 is punishment for rape. So okay. So under 376 there are different subclasses under 376 which deal with the punishment for rape. So after this, 2013 amendment, there is one more amendment in the criminal amendment, law amendment act in 2018, where actually there have inserted two subclasses in the 376 IPC. So just first we will see what is 376 IPC. So 376 clause 1 IPC deals with normal rape. Okay, normal rape. So that is what we have discussed. So the punishment not less than 7 years of imprisonment, which may be normal or rigorous imprisonment depending upon the crime committed by that particular person. Right? So that is minimum 7 years. Okay, that is actually before this amendment 2018. Right? Actually, after this amendment, they made the punishment minimum 10 years for rape. Okay, after 2018 amendment, actually the punishment for rape is minimum 10 years. Actually, that was not there in our textbook. That's why actually I'm mentioning both of them. So you can write when they ask the punishment for rape. So, okay, 2013 amendment, actually the punishment is minimum 7 years. After 2018 amendment, it's actually a minimum 10 years. Right? And 376(2), that is subclass 2, class 2, the custodial rape. So what does it mean? Rape by a person. So a person, a man who is actually committing sexual intercourse with a woman without the consent, who is under his custody, means who is working under him, or who is in the custody of him. That is rape by a police in the police custody. Okay, in his police station. So because he is the in charge of that particular place. Okay, so the punishment is more than what actually for a normal rape. Okay, so a person who is in charge of that particular place commits a rape on that particular woman, that is actually a more serious punishment, serious crime, and it has more punishment. That is minimum 10 years of imprisonment, can go up to life imprisonment. Okay, so the punishment is minimum 10 years and can go up to life imprisonment. Means the remainder of that particular person's life means. Okay, so if somebody is who is a 20 years committed rape, so if he lives up to 100 years, he has to stay in the jail for 80 years. So for the remainder of his life, he has to stay in the jail. So depending upon the severity of the crime, the court will decide the punishment. So, but minimum is 10 years. Okay, but minimum is 10 years, right? And not only the police, okay, any public servant, for example, a doctor, a superintendent of a doctor, a hospital, commits rape on a nurse or a patient. So that also comes under custodial rape, and actually the punishment will be go up to minimum 10 years and can go up to life. Okay, or a person in the armed forces, so person in the management of a hospital, or a guardian or a teacher. So a teacher who is who has the custody of the children in that school commits rape on a girl. So that is also heinous, and actually the minimum punishment is 10 years. So apart from these things I mentioned, if a person who is a relative to that particular female girl commits rape, so the minimum is 10 years. Or if the female is pregnant at the time of committing rape, the minimum punishment is 10 years. So all these actually are amendments after this Criminal Amendment Act, where they have included this, okay, the different subsections also. So the subsection 2 under this 376, what happened? There is subsection 3 also added, where whoever commits a rape on a woman who is below the age of 16 years. Okay, so normally 18 years, even the girl can give consent, it is rape. But if the girl's age is below the age of 16 years, it's okay. The punishment actually can go up to 20 years, minimum 20 years. Okay, if the girl's age is less than 16 years, the punishment actually starts with 20 years and can go up to life imprisonment and fine. Okay, provided that such fine is just and reasonable to meet the medical expenses and rehabilitation of the victim. So why we are collecting fine from the accused? For the rehabilitation of the victim girl. Okay, so for the purpose of treating that particular girl, so we need some money, right? So that will be collected by the court for the victim. So that should be paid by the accused, right? Okay. Next, there is one more thing called as gang rape. What does it mean? So when a woman is raped by one or more than one person, right, constituting a group or acting in furtherance of a common intention. That is, so for example, there are 4 people in a group. The 4 friends are there. but only one person has committed sexual intercourse with that girl. So the other persons are actually, one is catching the legs, one is catching the hands. Okay, but only one person had sexual intercourse. Still, the offense of gang rape was committed by all the persons, even though they didn't have the sexual intercourse with that particular girl. Okay, so it amounts to gang rape, and all the persons who are participated in that particular act will be punished according to gang section. Okay, 376D, that is punishment for the gang. So there are five important subsections in the 376. That is 376A. If a person commits rape, okay, and during that act of committing rape, if he causes such an injury that leads to death of the woman, like in that Delhi Nirbhaya case, what happened? That girl was killed, right? She died after some days of treatment. So because of the injuries sustained due to rape, right? So in cases where a person dies due to injuries sustained by rape, the minimum punishment is 20 years and or life or death punishment, that is capital sentence, that is what was given to those Nirbhaya convicts, right? Or if actually the person commits such crime, that is rape, and causes an injury which leads to persistent vegetative state of that particular female, that is the woman actually went into coma, right? She may live for 2 years in coma. So that also amounts to 376. Okay, the punishment will be under 376 AIPC, and it will be up to minimum 20 years, and can go up to life or death sentence. And 376 AB, that is actually added after 2018 amendment. So rape on a woman below the age of 12 years, the imprisonment actually should not be less than 20 years of imprisonment. If the girl's age is less than 12 years. Okay, and if it can be also life or death sentence also can be given. And 376B, the marital rape, that's what I told you. When a person, when the woman is living separately with the husband, by decree of separation, and the man has committed sexual intercourse without the consent of the woman, that amounts to marital rape. According to section 376B IPC, the punishment actually can go up to 2 to 7 years of imprisonment. And 376C IPC, sexual intercourse by a woman, by a man on a woman in authority. That means, so actually we are talking about custodial rape. Okay, subsection 2 of 376. What is that? 376 subsection 2, what is that? That is custodial rape. That is where there is no consent. But here, in 376C IPC, the woman has actually given a consent. But because the person is in authority of that particular situation, okay, the court thinks that she gave consent in fear or to keep her job. Okay, so that consent is not valid, and the punishment actually can go up to 10 years of imprisonment, minimum 5 years, up to 10 years of imprisonment if a person commits sexual intercourse with consent. Okay, the difference between the custodial rape and this one is, in custodial rape there is no consent. Okay, the punishment is minimum 10 years. But here in 376C, there is consent, but because the person is the authority of that particular situation, if she complains that I gave the consent only because of fear, then the consent is not valid, and the person actually can be given a punishment for 10 years. And finally, 376D, that is gang rape. So as I told you, what is a gang? So more than one person is involved in sexual intercourse with a woman, and the punishment actually can go up to life imprisonment minimum, and actually can give a capital sentence, that is death sentence. There is one more thing, that is 376DA and DB, that is actually added 2018 amendment. That is, if the woman's age is less than 16 years and the gang rape was committed on that particular woman, minimum imprisonment is life imprisonment. And if the gang rape on a woman who is less than 12 years, the minimum punishment will be life imprisonment, and the death sentence will be given. Right? And 376E, that is repeat offenders. That is, if a person has committed rape repeatedly, that is, he has committed rape and he went to jail. He came back and committed rape again. Then okay, or he was punished according to the above section 376A to D, then it amounts to repeat offender, and the minimum punishment can be life imprisonment or death sentence. Okay, so after these amendments, what happened? The punishment has increased rigorously. Okay, previously, okay, up to 7 years of imprisonment was for their rape, but after these amendments, minimum 7 years, and actually it can go up to death sentence. Okay, depending upon the the subsections under which these the punishment of rape comes under, right? Okay, so we'll see. So to summarize the punishments, so punishment for rape around section 376, okay, for 376A and A, B, C, D, E. So A is causing death or persistent vegetative state. B is sexual intercourse during separation. C is public intercourse by a person in authority with consent, and D is gang rape, and finally E is punishment for repeat offenders, okay, who are punished according to the above sections, right? And other related sections too regarding rape, okay, not only in IPC, that CRPC and Indian Evidence Act. So there are few important sections that you should know. 327(2) Criminal Procedure Code, where inquiry or trial in cases of 376, the punishments for 375 should be conducted in secret. So the inquiry should be conducted in secret. In camera should not be printed, right? And 376C, 357C CRPC, medical treatment to the woman who is the victim of rape should be given free of cost, whether it is a private hospital or a government hospital. The doctor is supposed to give free treatment to the victim, okay, in emergency. Okay, we should not charge anything for the treatment of the woman in emergency, right? And actually, there is recently they have okay, after this case, what happened? They have made a recommendation to the CRPC to complete the trial within a month. Okay, within 28 days. Okay, but that was not actually still amended, but still you should know they are trying to amend the Criminal Procedure Code to actually complete the procedure of trial, the procedure of investigation in case of rape within 4 weeks, right? And Section 54 Indian Evidence Act, bad character of the victim is not relevant in cases of rape. That is, even the victim is a prostitute. Okay, if she did not give the consent for sexual intercourse at that particular time, that amounts to rape. Okay, the previous bad character of the victim is not relevant, and the accused has to prove that she has given the consent, right? And under Section 114 Indian Evidence Act, court will presume that she did not consent. Okay, that is according to Section 114 Indian Evidence Act. Okay, if a woman says that I have not given consent, the court will presume that she has not given consent, and the proof of burden to prove that the consent was given by the victim is on the accused, right? And 228A Indian Penal Code, identity of the victim should not be revealed. Okay, so if a person reveals the identity of the victim, actually the punishment actually can go up to 2 years of imprisonment. So if by chance a doctor reveals the name of the victim to the press, it amounts to, okay, this is an offense according to Section 228 IPC, and the punishment actually can go up to 2 years of imprisonment. Not only the doctor, okay, any press, okay, any media releases the name of the victim, unless until if the victim gives the consent, if she is more than 18 years, or if she is less than 18 years, the guardians give the consent. The name and identity of the victim should be kept in secret, because okay, it is a taboo in the society. So to protect the interests of the victim, you should never disclose the identity of the victim, okay, unless you get the consent to reveal the identity, right? And 493 IPC, cohabitation by man deceitfully inducing a belief of lawful marriage. So actually I was talking about decide in case of 375 IPC, right? But that is different from this. What is this? A man is living with a woman saying that we are married. So okay, he will take her to a she her to a temple and marry and living together. And after some time, okay, he will say that I didn't marry, right? So in those cases where there is a deceit in the marriage, and okay, and has had sexual intercourse, that also amounts to rape, because the woman actually has given consent, thinking that she has actually given consent because okay, he is her actually lawfully married husband, right? And then, okay, normally who are the persons who actually commit rape? That is the accused persons. So normally 90% of the cases, they are the normal adjusted men. Okay, so there are the normal persons, okay, like me, you, okay, who are roaming around. They are the actual accused, right? They are the rapists. The person who committed rape is called as rapist, right? Okay, so in few cases, the person may be sexually deviated, but psychologically non-deviated. So he may be having sexual deviations. Okay, so okay, few movies what they will do, so they will have sexual perversions and they will actually commit crimes. Right? In few cases, they are sexually and psychologically deviated offenders. So Ashwadhama cinema chusara man recent vachindi kada. So in that person, what is that doctor is doing? He is actually both sexually and psychologically deviated offender, right? So he both, okay, he is sexually deviated from normal sexual life, and also psychologically he is actually having schizophrenia, right? So these are the few rapists maybe both sexually and psychologically deviated from the normal behavior, right? So normally this trial for rape should be done in a court where the judge is a woman. Okay, most commonly if it is not available, then they may be done in a normal court, but mostly it should be done in a court where the at least one of the judges in that particular panel should be a woman, right? And case should be recorded by a female police officer so that the woman can actually feel comfortable in explaining those complaints, and case should be recorded at the residence of the victim or at any other convenient place of her choice. Okay, if you don't want to come to the police station, you should not force her to come, and you can take the evidences, collect the evidences in a place where the woman or the victim feels comfortable, and you can actually take the ask you some questions, and those things can be videographed for the future as an evidence, right? Okay, so by the next class, okay, that is on Tuesday when I'm going to take the second class in sexual offences. So you should, okay, I'll ask you some questions, and everybody, please don't mute your phones. Just at least at the start of the session, please don't mute your phones, and everybody should on their video, right? So if somebody mute their or stop their video in between or at the end of before the end of the session, they will be marked as absent. Okay, only those people who will continuously on their both, okay, on at least the video will be given the present. Okay, don't think that you will go on for some time, off for some time, and you will get the attendance. No, only those people who are on video will be given the attendance, right? Got it? Okay, and most probably in the next week you will be having some assessment exam also. Okay, so virginity, pregnancy, delivery, and also these sexual offences will be finished by that time. So you have to, okay, you read. Do you have the books? Books unnaya mee daggara? Please somebody on their mic and talk. Do you have the books with you?
Yes,
Sai Krishna.
yes, sir.
Unnaya?
Unnai, sir.
So please, okay, try. Just I told very less today because okay, it's very important to learn. You should actually the definition of rape. You should be very thorough with that. Okay, so all those four conditions in which it amounts to rape, and all the circumstances. Okay, that's all those 7 circumstances where it amounts to rape, right? So the definition of rape according to section 375, and also the punishment for rape according to 376 should be learned thoroughly. right? And in the next class, I am going to deal with the examination of both the victim and the accused, and finally we'll finish the topic in the third class, right? Okay, right. So how many are there in the class now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, all are there. 6 members. Who is absent?
Revant, sir.
Hemant.
Revant, sir.
Revanta. Okay,
Yes.
right. Why is he absent? This is very very important topic, sir. ఇంట్లో కూర్చొని చూడటానికి కూడా 1 hour టైం లేదా?
కాదు సార్, వాళ్ళ ఇంటి దగ్గర పాలిమర్స్, ఎల్జీ పాలిమర్స్ గ్యాస్ లీక్ అయిందని న్యూస్ ఉంది కదా సార్. వాళ్ళు సరౌండింగ్ అక్కడే ఉంటారు, సో అందుకనే వాళ్ళు.
సో ఈజీ సేఫ్.
ఎస్ సార్.
రైట్. Okay, anyhow, okay, please take this time to complete those backlogs, means those things which you did not read previously. Okay, take this time to read out, because after coming here you will be having so many practicals and all those things, right? So by the time you come, you try to study all those topics which were covered till now, right?
Okay.
Okay, right. Bye.
Thank you, sir.